Good day. I am Celestine Joy Bonaton, BSTM 3B, and I'm going to discuss and share the impacts of tourism on heritage, particularly the positive and the negative impact. But before I'm going to share and discuss the positive and the negative impacts, let me define first what is tourism as well as heritage. We know that there are a number of ways tourism can be defined, but according to United Nations World Tourism Organization, they define tourism as a social, cultural, and economic phenomenon which entails the movement of people to countries or places outside their usual environment for personal or business or professional purposes. And for heritage, according to ICOMOS definition, or the International Council on Monuments and Sites, they define heritage as a broad concept that includes tangible assets such as natural and cultural environments, encompassing landscape, historic places, sites, and built environments, as well as intangible assets such as collections, past and continuing cultural practices, knowledge, and living experiences. And tourism impacts can be grouped into three categories, which are socio-cultural impacts, environmental impacts, and economic impacts. I'm going to discuss and share the positive and negative impact of each category. So let's start with socio-cultural impacts. So here is the socio-cultural positive impacts. Number one is improve quality of life, facilitates meeting visitors or educational experience, positive changes in values and customs, promotes cultural exchange, and increased demand for historical and cultural exhibit. But there's another positive impacts, which are employment creation, income redistribution, and poverty alleviation. Moving on is the other potential positive impacts of tourism. Number one here is the tourism as a force for peace. It means attracting visitors interested in history and preservation of the area. Next is strengthening communities. Tourism can add to the vitality of communities in many ways. One example is that events and festivals on which local residents have been the primary participants and spectators are often rejuvenated and developed in response to tourism interests. Next is revaluation of culture and traditions. It means preservation of local traditions and culture. And next is tourism encourage civic involvement and pride, which mean increase awareness of the site or area's significance. And another is cultural diversity, which is tourism is one of the foremost drivers of cultural exchange, providing a personal experience not only of that which has survived from the past, but of the contemporary life and society of others. So, moving on is the negative socio-cultural impacts from tourism. Number one is change or loss of indigenous identity and values. Tourism can cause change or loss of local identity and values brought about several closely related influences, which are commodification, standardization, loss of authenticity and stage authenticity, adaptation to tourist demands, culture classes, economic inequality, physical influences causing social stress and depriving local people of access. And second is ethical issue. Partly due to the above impacts, tourism can create more serious situations where ethical and even criminal issues are involved, which are like criminal generation, child labor, prostitution, and sex tourism. So, the second category is environmental. So, here is the positive impacts. Number one is environmental quality and infrastructure improvement. Second is conservation of natural and built resources. Examples are national parks, ancient monuments. Third is improvement of general environment of a destination. Another is protection of selected natural environment or preservation of further ecological decline. Next is preservation of historic buildings and monuments. And lastly is improvement of the area's appearances, like visual and aesthetic. So, the negative environmental impacts. Number one is depletion of natural resources. Tourism development can put pressure on natural resources when it increases consumption in areas where resources are already scarce. So under this depletion of natural resources are water resources, which means the tourism industry generally overuse water resources for hotels, swimming pools, golf courses, and personal use of water by tourists. And this can result in water shortage and degradation of water supplies. And next is local resources. Actually, tourism can create great pressure on local resources like energy, food, and other raw materials that may already be in short supply. And third is land degradation. So the second negative impacts is pollution. And under this pollution are air pollution and noise, solid waste and littering, sewage, and static pollution. And third is physical impacts. And under these negative impacts of physical impacts are construction activities and infrastructure development, deforestation and intensified or unsustainable use of land, and marina development. So, environmental impacts of tourism in global level, which are loss of biological diversity, depletion of the ozone layer, and climate change. So, moving on to the last category, which is economic. So, here are the positive impacts of tourism. Economic impacts of tourism. Number one here is foreign exchange earnings, contributions to government revenues, employment generation, infrastructure investment, and contribution to local economies. And lastly is the negative impacts, which are leakage, enslaved tourism, infrastructure costs, increase in prices of goods and services, economic dependence, and seasonal character of jobs. So that's all. Thank you for listening. God bless and always keep safe. Thank you.